Welcome to episode 316 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak encouragement into the hearts of educators and get you informed and energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm talking about radical acceptance and the power of we'll see. Visit truthforteachers.com for an easy-to-read, easy-to-share version of this podcast episode. Instead of a sponsor message today, I'd like to ask a quick favor, especially if you've been a longtime listener and supporter of Truth for Teachers. If you haven't yet left a rating or a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, would you consider doing that? It only takes a few seconds, and you can do it right from your podcast app. There's also a link in the show notes to make it super easy. Your ratings and reviews really help increase the podcast visibility, so that more educators can find and benefit from it. Even just tapping the star rating makes a big difference, and I deeply appreciate every single review. Thank you so much to those who have already shared your feedback. You are the reason that this show continues to grow and thrive. So, welcome back to Truth for Teachers. This is the first episode of the new year in 2025. I took December off from the podcast and from social media, as I usually do. And now I'm back with an episode to set the tone for the year ahead. And the direction that I want to take for 2025 is about practicing radical acceptance in a world that feels increasingly unpredictable. It's no secret that the past few years for our world, and certainly here in the US, things have been marked by uncertainty. What we thought was stable has shifted. Plans that we made were upended. Stuff that we thought we could count on, norms that would be upheld, things that we believed would be dependable, got shaken up. I've seen memes that say, I wish we could live in precedented times again. And I feel that, truly. As we step into 2025, I think many of us are feeling the weight of not knowing what's coming next. It might be on a geopolitical level, or with politics locally or nationally. The unpredictability that you're feeling might be centered on climate change and natural disasters, or maybe the future of schooling amidst all the challenges, or the economy, or maybe the way that AI is disrupting industries and making it difficult to predict what comes next. But no matter what's really weighing on you or what you've been thinking about lately, I think this sense that our world is truly in uncharted territory in many ways can be exciting, but also deeply unsettling, especially for those of us who like to feel prepared and like to be in control. One way that I cope with anxiety is by planning for various outcomes. So if this happens, I'll do this. If that happens, I'll do that. And then I have this sense of certainty where I feel like no matter what happens, okay, I have a plan. But right now, it feels like there's too many interdependent issues in which one variable can create a ripple effect that is impossible for me to predict. There's so many possible outcomes right now, so many different things that could happen, that strategy isn't working for me in the moment. I feel like I can't prepare. So what can I do instead? Here's a couple of things that I'm reflecting on and experimenting with right now. One is making my world a little smaller. Humans are not built to carry the weight of the entire world's problems and to have minute-by-minute updates on every tragedy happening everywhere all the time. So when it all just feels like too much, I first and foremost get offline. I stop reading and listening to all the noise. I come back to my breath, my body, my home, my closest relationships, my local community, and the ways that my actions have an impact here. I can't put out the wildfires on the West Coast. I can't single-handedly end the wars overseas. But I can show up in my local community as a kind, caring citizen. I can check in on my neighbors, especially those who might be struggling or feeling isolated. I can support local small businesses, choosing to spend my dollars in ways that help my community thrive. I can volunteer my time and donate to causes that I believe in. I can smile at a stranger, hold the door open for someone, offer a listening ear to a friend who needs support. These might seem like small gestures, but they're also feeling in some ways like more of a rarity, and that makes them more precious when they do happen. These small gestures are the building blocks of a more compassionate, connected world. And when I focus on what's within my reach, within my power, it's a reminder that even small actions can create ripples of positive change. Because while I may not have the power to solve the world's biggest problems, I do have the power to make a difference in my own corner of the world. And that's where all real change begins, with ordinary people doing what they can, where they are, with what they have. So when the problems feel overwhelming, try making your world smaller and get off the news and social media channels for a while. It's taken me a long time to realize that it isn't necessarily selfish to tune out bigger problems at times. Obviously, it is a privilege to be able to do so because it means I'm not personally impacted by those problems. But me being overwhelmed, depressed, and withdrawn, it doesn't help anyone. Staying emotionally regulated, staying mentally balanced, maintaining my physical health. These are the things that mean I'm not adding to the problems. I'm not contributing to them. I'm not making them worse. I can actually show up and help. I can offer solid advice. I can be supportive to other people because I've filled my own cup and I have something to pour out. Showing up as the best version of myself as much as I can means that I'm not adding to the pain and suffering around me. I can be patient in traffic and frustrating situations like that and not add to the escalating rage that the people around me might be feeling for much larger reasons than just the traffic. So for 2025, I am making my world smaller and focusing on easing suffering and pain for others in the way that I show up daily. My word for the year is serendipity. And that actually ties in here quite a bit because serendipity requires letting go of control and stop trying to fix everything myself. And that's my natural tendency. It's what I did in the early days of the pandemic, when my home in New York City was a place where we were surrounded by fear and death. Schools were closing, everything was switching to remote learning nationwide, and I had no idea how to help my teachers anymore. I felt responsible for coming up with solutions for things that one person can't solve. And as longtime listeners of the podcast know, this led to a depressive episode that took me many months to dig my way out of, with a lot of support as well as medication. I refuse to give in to fear in 2025. I did that in 2020. I'm not judging myself for it. I can't go back and change anything. But I can choose my response in this moment, and I can learn from that experience that it did not benefit me or anyone else to be in that fearful state. I refuse this time around in this moment to track every single thing happening in government and freak out about it. I am resolving to act and not react. I will stay informed and knowledgeable about what's happening in the larger world, but the smaller, local, offline world, that's the one that I inherently inhabit. And the rest is, in many ways, a choice to engage with or not engage with. My choices have the biggest impact on me and the people closest to me. So by making these choices very intentionally, I'm protecting us, me and the people closest to me. I'm supporting us. I'm lifting us up. I'm working on behalf of us. And if each of us are doing that in our own little corner of the world, it does ripple out. And that's the lovely part about serendipity, is that I don't have to have all the answers and I don't have to know exactly what this looks like. A few years ago, I did that podcast episode in the new year about the train leaving the station and how I'm heading for my destination. I know where I'm going and I'm not going to wait around and convince everyone else to join. That metaphor, I think, is powerful. I've thought about it many times since then, and it really served me well in that situation, at that moment in time. But right now, quite frankly, I don't have a clear destination in mind. I don't know where I'm going because it's not exactly clear what the options are. And it's not clear which ones are going to be the best options. There's a lot of uncertainty. And it just keeps making me think about that Chinese proverb about the farmer whose horse ran away. You know the one, right? Where the neighbors come over to offer sympathy saying, "What bad luck?" And the farmer just replies, "We'll see." And a few days later, the horse returns and brings along a whole herd of wild horses with it. And the neighbors are like, "What great fortune." And the farmer says, "We'll see." Later, the farmer's son tried to ride one of the wild horses and fell and broke his leg. And the neighbors called it a terrible misfortune. But the farmer's response remained the same: "We'll see." Not long after, soldiers came to the village, drafting all the able-bodied young men for war, and the farmer's son was spared because of his injury. That proverb is what this particular moment in human history feels like to me. What seems good at the moment might have bad outcomes later on. And what seems bad right now, we can see is actually leading to something positive. Our world is getting increasingly complex, and that makes it harder to discern the right choices because of how many other factors are impacted. If you've ever watched the TV series The Good Place, you might be thinking of Eleanor and Chidi right now. I recently just did a rewatch of that, and it is resonating hard. Anyway, my point is that I don't know where a lot of things are heading. And I don't have to rush to judgment about what's good and bad, and I don't have to react to everything. I can focus on staying calm and regulated no matter what, and wait and see. The beauty of serendipity is staying open to possibilities. A serendipitous moment is not a planned thing. It's the unexpected discovery of something wonderful. When you just stumble on a moment, when you have an opportunity come out of seemingly nowhere, or when you make a connection that you weren't actively seeking. It's when things align in ways that you couldn't have planned. And I see plenty of room for that in these unprecedented times. Looking for serendipity allows us to practice the ability to shift our perspective. It teaches us to embrace uncertainty because you never know what unexpected blessings might come our way. Maybe a last-minute detour leads you to meet someone who becomes a lifelong friend. Maybe an unexpected challenge sparks a creative solution that you never would have explored otherwise. When we stay open and curious, we invite serendipity into our lives. And it's a reminder that not everything has to be meticulously planned. Sometimes the best things happen when we simply allow life to unfold. You see, when everything feels uncertain, it also means that anything is possible. The path ahead of us isn't clear. The destination seems kind of foggy. You can see it maybe in the distance, but we're not quite sure. Anything is possible in that realm. The unpredictability that can feel so daunting can also have a sense of opportunity that we can lean into instead. And if we do that, we can begin to shift from a place of fear to a place of hope and creativity. And that's why I believe a turn toward radical acceptance might be just the ticket right now. I discussed this first in episode 176, as well as in the new edition of my book, Awakened: Change Your Mindset to Transform Your Teaching. Radical acceptance is a term that's often used in mindfulness and therapy practices to describe the act of fully acknowledging reality as it is, without resistance and without judgment. Radical acceptance does not mean that you approve of what's happening or that you agree with it all or that you're giving up on change. It simply means that you are choosing to stop fighting against what's beyond your control. When you stop expending energy trying to control the uncontrollable, you create space for clarity and action. Radical acceptance grounds you in the present moment. It allows you to see what is rather than what you wish or what you fear it might be. And from that place of acceptance, you can move forward intentionally, focusing on what you can influence. So, how does this apply to us as educators? Right now, we might feel stuck in the tension of wanting to plan for the future while recognizing how quickly things can change. We might feel overwhelmed by all of the changes in children, in our society, in our schools over the last 5 or so years. But here's the truth. We've always operated in a world of unknowns. There were a lot of changes in the 5 years before that, and the 5 years before that. And teaching has always required us to adapt and respond in real time. We can practice radical acceptance by acknowledging, yes, things feel unpredictable. I don't know how this is all going to turn out, but that's okay. I don't need all the answers right now. I trust myself to handle whatever comes my way. And this doesn't mean that we ignore challenges. It means we face them with a sense of calm and confidence, knowing that we can navigate through uncertainty with grace. Once we accept that uncertainty is just going to be part of the equation, then we can start to reframe it as a space for possibility. If we don't know exactly what the future holds, then we also can't rule out the potential for good things to happen. And we have the opportunity to shape that future, not by controlling every detail, but by consistently showing up and creating the kind of world that we want to see. In your classroom, you might not know exactly how your students will respond to a new teaching strategy, but you can create a classroom culture that encourages risk-taking and celebrates growth. You might not be able to predict what challenges will arise this semester, but you can build a community of support among your colleagues so that you face those challenges together. This mindset shift isn't easy, and it's not something you can do once and then check off your list. Radical acceptance is a practice. It's something you return to over and over again, especially when things feel overwhelming. When you feel yourself resisting reality, pause. Take a deep breath. Acknowledge what you're feeling without judgment, and remind yourself that you have the tools to navigate whatever comes your way. Here's a simple practice to help you cultivate this mindset. Each morning, take a few moments to reflect on 2 questions. First, what is something I can release today? Something I don't need to control or carry. And second, what is one small action I can take to create the world I want to live in? These questions help ground you in what's within your control and remind you that even small steps can lead to meaningful change. As we move through 2025 together, let's commit to focusing on possibility. Let's not judge situations when it's too soon to see the ripple effect and what's actually going to be good or bad. Let's release the limitations of black and white, all or nothing thinking, of judging everything as good or bad, as a positive or a negative. Let's allow for the nuance and paradox. Let's release judgment of the situation altogether and practice radical acceptance. We can choose to see unpredictability not as a threat, but as an invitation. So let's keep showing up, keep creating, keep building a future that's rooted in hope and optimism. You can do this. We can do this. And remember, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.